we'll get started since it's 6 o'clock. We can just wait for more people to come in. Hello, y'all. Welcome to the Cross Cultural Center's Rollerskating and Anti-blackness workshop. Just as a few disclaimers in the beginning, we will be using closed captioning through Google Slides. If Lena could put that on. It may not be entirely accurate or pick up all of our voices perfectly. There you go. But we thank y'all for the patience. We will also be recording today's workshop to be uploaded onto our YouTube, so that option will be there for any of y'all who need it as well. We are also joined by Sunny from iLead, if you want to introduce yourself and give any announcements.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to today's iLead workshop with our wonderful presenters. My name is Sunny. I go by she, her, hers, and I am a CNL assistant at the Center for Student Involvement, Communication, and Leadership. I'll be helping out with this iLead and Zoom logistics today. In case you're here for iLead, just a reminder, 2 ways to receive iLead completion is to attend the workshops like you are today and to get 6 stamps, earns you a certificate of completion, 10 stamps, plus the reflection essay submitted to Google Classroom, earns you a certificate of completion and CCR validation that will be awarded at the end of the quarter. If you aren't already in it, please join the iLead Google Classroom. I will be putting all the information in the chat after I finish this speech, and the Google Classroom is used to complete the program later in the series to submit your stamps and reflection essay. For full credit for today's workshop, you must be present and engaging in some way for the entirety of the workshop in order to receive credit for attendance. You will receive your virtual stamps via email on the Friday of this week. And if you lose Wi-Fi connections or have technical difficulties, please email the CCL email, which is ccl@ucsd.edu, and we will work with you to let you back into the workshop. So that's all I have for today, and we'll continue with the workshop. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. We'll go on to our next slide and start with a land acknowledgement. I'll read it out for y'all. The UC San Diego community holds great respect for the land and the original people of the area where our campus is located. The university was built on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. Today, the Kumeyaay people continue to maintain their political sovereignty and cultural traditions as vital members of the San Diego community. We are honored to share this space with them, and we thank them for their stewardship. So the statement is adapted from UCSD's Intertribal Resource Center. We also have a resource for y'all at the bottom where you can text your city and your state to that number to figure out which Indigenous lands you occupy, especially in a pandemic. Not everyone is in San Diego or on Kumeyaay land. First, we'll do introductions of us.
Hey everybody, my name is Alina. I use she, her pronouns. I am a 4th year human biology major, and I am the Cross Cultural Center's Jim Lynn Alumni Relations and Development Intern and Social Justice Educator.
Hello everyone, thank you all for joining us here today. My name is Citlali Martinez Cano. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a 2nd year and I'm the Art and Activism Social Justice Educator.
And hello, I'm Joss. I use they, them pronouns. I am a 3rd year developmental psych major. I am the Affiliates and Leadership Intern, as well as a social justice educator. So next we'll go into y'all introducing yourselves. So you can go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. Make sure you set it to all panelists and participants so everyone can see. We'll ask y'all, what's your name? What are your pronouns? What's your hometown? And what's your experience with roller skating and roller skating culture? So we'll give you all a little while to answer that question.
For the time being, I can share my roller skating experience. I'm not too experienced. I used to do roller skate a lot when I was a kid, but unfortunately I lost my first pair of skates, so I never really kept it going.
Yeah, I had bought roller skates at the beginning of the pandemic, like everyone did, but I haven't touched them in a while because it got cold and I was like, oh, I'll just do it later. But I haven't skated in a little while. Nancy shared went roller skating in high school on wheels, rollerblading later in life. Doricel shared, I am from San Diego, California. I'm not experienced in roller skating. It was a fun activity as a kid too. I definitely wasn't a coordinated enough child to roller skate. I would have embarrassed myself. Allie, 3rd year. I used to rollerblade when I was younger, but I've outgrown my pair. Buy a new one. Gabby shared been roller skating in the Black community for the last 20 plus years. That's amazing. It must be really good. My name is Brian. I use he, him pronouns. I'm from Rancho Cucamonga, and I've never roller skated. A lot of them are coming through. Used to skate a lot as a kid. Fell repeatedly. Used to roller skate when I was in middle school. Got someone joining from Malaysia. Roller skating with my coworkers a year back. It was rough. Lots of falling. Yeah. I also feel like falling's easier when you're a kid. You don't feel it as bad. You're not falling from as high. All right. We can move on, but y'all can keep introducing yourselves in the chat if you'd like.
Okay, to give a brief overview and learning outcomes of this workshop, first we'll dive into the history by giving a breakdown of roller skating. Next, we'll go into anti-blackness in skating spaces, exploring how skating rinks were heavily discriminative and how they've grown since. Then we'll move on to roller skating culture now, a look into modern roller skating virality and whitewashing of skating media. And finally, we'll share some famous roller skaters and Black businesses to support.
Awesome. So I will get us started with the history. So if Elena, you could go to the next slide, I will give y'all a quick breakdown. In the 1760s, Joseph Merlin attended a masquerade party wearing metal-wheeled boots. He decided to make a really grand entrance with the rolling in, but there was a full mirror wall and he crashed into it. That's the great start of roller skating. Then in the 1840s, barmaids in Germany would serve patrons in beer taverns wearing roller skates. And this was actually a really practical decision because the beer halls in Germany were so huge, it would make it better for them to deliver the beer. And then in 1863, James Plimpton birthed the modern four-wheel roller skates, the ones we know today. And then in the 1900s, roller skating rinks opened up everywhere, even outside of cities in America. There were skating rinks. It was a really big thing. The Coliseum in Chicago opened up a public skating rink, and over 7,000 people showed up on the opening night. But, this is a really, really white timeline. There's actually a lot more Black culture within the roller skating history. To get us started, we're going to touch a little bit on the political history of roller skates. There's a really famous roller skater. His name is Ledger Smith. He's also known as Rollerman, and he skated almost 700 miles as a political statement. But we're going to talk about him a little bit more later. Then there were also many protests. One of the very first civil rights sit-ins actually happened at a roller skating rink in 1949. Black skaters were continuously denied admittance. If they came during a white night, some rinks would hire thugs to trip them, or rink owners would say, oh, we actually don't carry any skates in your size. Even today, we see a lot of really discriminatory practices that still kind of target Black skaters, such as no saggy pants or no hip hop music. It's a way to discourage having Black patrons. So as I touched before, Black skaters had to stage protests to fight for these admittance into the roller rinks. They weren't really allowed to skate with white skaters, and instead they had one night a week where they were given the ability to skate. It wasn't called a Black only night. It was more like soul night or hip hop night, a subtle way of being, hey, this is the only night you're supposed to come. But as I mentioned before, there were still many forms of discrimination that continued. No baggy pants, no rap music. There were skates that Black skaters used, which were modified, and they wouldn't let you use those either. And a lot of people noted as well that during these Black only skating nights, there was extra security, there were metal detectors, it was really racially targeted. And while though some believe that the discrimination within the roller skating community has been left in the past, this is actually really untrue. Here's a really noteworthy story. When Black skaters somehow found themselves within white skating nights, they noticed a lot of differential treatment. One such tale is that of Reggie Premier Brown. He was a roller skater from New York, and the summer before he left for college, he discovered something interesting because he'd skate on Fridays, which was predominantly white skaters, and he'd also skate on Saturdays, which was predominantly Black skaters. And he noted that on Fridays, The roller rink that he used, the same roller rink, would have a really nice redone bathroom, super clean, had everything you needed to use. But when he tried to use it the following day on a Saturday night, it was locked. And when he talked to the manager, he led him to a different bathroom, which was, quoting, the absolute worst, most disgusting sight you've ever seen in a bathroom. He also mentioned that there was a lack of toilet paper and it was not really usable. And you may think this is a story from the 50s, but that's not really true. He's 36 in 2020, so he was 18 in 2003. That's when this tale took place. Now we want to hear from y'all. Do you have any idea of what types of subtle remarks do you continue to see used to discriminate against Black folks? This isn't limited to roller rings. We're just trying to see if you still notice and pick up on things today. I can say one. My mom would tell me about the time she would go to the club and she would say that they would always say you needed really nice pants. You couldn't wear jeans or baggy pants. I think that's one way to discriminate against Black folks, people of color in general. Tamara mentions accusing Black folks of being too loud. Definitely, it's always Black people who are pointed out for taking up too much space, but when it's white folks, it's not really counted. Dorsal says rules and regulations for how Black folks should wear their hair at work or other places. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to bring that one up as well. How these kind of rules, I even saw them in, what are they called? Like handbooks they give at school. In my high schools, they would say no loud music, no baggy pants. You can't wear your hair a certain way. So that kind of ties into what Dory Sell said.
Yeah, and California issued the Crown Act recently, and a few states followed, which means that you can't discriminate against people's natural hair. However, only 7 out of 50 states actually use or have this policy. So that's definitely really true still today. Nancy says racial surveillance in stores, public spaces. Definitely, Black folks are looked at more closely when they're in the stores. People assume that they're going to commit a crime or do something bad. All right, I think we can move on from this question. Thank you all for participating. Next, we're going to talk about the culture and community that developed within these roller rinks. Rap was actually a huge part of roller skating rinks, and we can thank roller skating rinks for rap today. The DJs of the 70s helped develop the foundation of rap music. Dr. Dre and Queen Latifah, they were actually roller rink DJs early on in their career. And roller rinks were actually the only venues that would let rappers or hip hop artists have concerts in their venues. Others wouldn't really book them. So this is how roller skating, rap, all of this became a subculture. And that's why roller skating, rap, and all of these things have been heavily defined by the Black community and Black members. So much of the culture that we see today is not only reflective of the Black community, but also of the Black roller skating community. So now I want to touch up a little bit on the history of rap and roller skating. So in 1981, Fab Five Freddy, which is this man here at the top, and Michael Holman right below him, saw the rap scene in the Bronx, and they were, oh my gosh, this is the next big thing. We have to grow this, take this everywhere. So they had little venues where they would host people with concerts, but they couldn't really find a large venue who would let rap artists perform until they found the Roxy, which was a large roller disco in Chelsea, New York, which was the only venue that they could perform in that was large enough for them to proceed. And then after this, roller rinks everywhere became kind of the venue for rap. For some examples, DJ Ready Red broke records at Capitol Roller Rink, and up-and-coming rappers from New York and New Jersey performed at the Chez Vous Roller Rink. And because of this, rap developed and spread in the United States and then the world. Essentially, you knew you were going to make it as a rapper if you were performing at a roller rink. That was your sign of success. Now we're going to show a clip of a 13-minute video of a breaking contest at a roller rink uploaded to YouTube by Sean Grimes. We'll only be watching a couple of minutes. So if you can go ahead and please share. Folks in the chat mentioned there's a lot of voguing, and these moves are really popular, and they started at roller skating rinks. Suffice to say, the culture of hip hop spread across America, and people were rapping, DJ, breaking, doing all of these things that started and formed in roller skating rinks. If you want to see the full YouTube video, you should definitely check it out. There's a lot of groups dancing, breaking. It was a really fun time back then. However, just as rap was taking over the country and soon the world, Black people were controlling every single aspect of rap. They were controlling the production, the creation, the distribution, the promotion. They were at every stage of rap production. But suddenly, right around this time, crack cocaine became heavily available, especially within the Black community. And suddenly, somehow, the rap industry, which was becoming a billion-dollar business, left the hands of Black folks and made its way into the hands of corporations. Even though Black people were at the forefront of this culture, this community, they weren't reaping the benefits.
Next, we'll go into anti-blackness in roller skating spaces from the civil rights era to 2021. So kind of connecting this to what's happening now in pre-civil rights movements, but even after, they found ways to not necessarily kick Black folks out of skate rinks because they couldn't do that anymore. They would make it harder for them to skate, give them worse skating conditions, or would make them assimilate to the skating style of white folks. They banned smaller wheels that Black folks favored for skating jams or dancing and skating at the same time. And many rinks even shut down because they'd rather completely die down and not exist as a place than have to integrate. And these places were a vehicle for Black joy, and skating rinks even helped birth Black hip hop, as Sitlali mentioned, and performances happened right on their tracks. And one of the articles I had watched, they had, or read, sorry, they had said that during the civil rights era, skating kind of showed as a visual metaphor for a forward movement for Black folks and how they were treading upstream against a white supremacist culture. And this got harder as they were trying to make them assimilate to white skating and the style that white folks skated compared to Black folks. Roller skating has existed in Black culture for a very long time, and it was a vehicle for their joy and for their community, but they faced a lot of adversity amongst the joys that it made them feel. So if you move to the next slide, one of these was the fight for skating rinks and skating parks to even exist. With white populations moving into communities of color, many skate rinks and skate parks today have found themselves in danger of being shut down. These places of rich culture and community for them are still in danger of being rid of. This process is called gentrification, which I'll talk more about in the next slide. But even before now, it was considered a dying sport, and it wasn't because people weren't skating, it was because it was still so looked down upon. Because communities of color skate generations and generations, it's still held close to them. Another quote from the article described how skating was a refuge for them, and with the way that their communities were treated and the lack of resources that they were provided, if they didn't have things like skating, they said they'd be in drugs and gangs or even dead, especially in cities like Chicago and other underprivileged communities that have increased rates of shootings and homicide. Yes, Gabby mentioned the last victim of gentrification is Skateland in Northridge, which closed for good a few months ago. I was going to mention that later on. But there's hope even now because of increased popularity and a resurgence in skating that they could bring these places back, but they're not going to be the same if it's white folks that are bringing it back, you know? And it's even harder in a pandemic for these businesses to stay afloat and provide for themselves and have this connection while we're so disconnected. So the next slide, I will be talking about gentrification. So this is one of those topics where I always heard it being talked about, but never quite understood what it entailed or how to define it. So gentrification can be described as wealthy white populations moving into poor or working class communities of color. This form of urban sprawl and how to deal with population growth has a major economic and cultural effect on communities of color, such as the displacement of renters due to unaffordable housing. As more rich people move in, renters can afford to increase rent and make more competition for their places because there are richer people moving in. There's also increased competition for local businesses. Often they have to go into loss or have to shut down or have to change themselves to assimilate to white people's aesthetics and white people's their needs. It fosters discriminatory behaviors by those in power, furthers the disparity between white and Black folks. And there's also loss of community diversity, culture, and activities. One example that would tie this in kind of to San Diego is Barrio Logan, and thinking about the positioning of UCSD and where it is in San Diego County. If we can move to the next slide, I have a little bit of a map. Oh, it's kind of hard to see. The black dot I have on there is Barrio Logan, and then towards the top of the map is La Jolla, where UCSD is. UCSD was put far away from communities of color and far away from those who don't have access to higher education. And it was put there for a reason. There are more white populations in northern San Diego even today. Coming from South Bay, I've always heard it split from above and below the 8 highway. But lately, there's been more folks coming from the north and pushing into Black and Brown communities and taking over the local businesses and cultures. Barrio Logan is located along the San Diego Bay, the big area of water between Coronado and Silver Strand. And it's occupied predominantly by a Latinx population, and they have a long history of grassroots activism and fighting against gentrification. But recently, they've been having issues with white businesses pushing out families that have been there for generations, or finding themselves needing to assimilate their businesses to fit a white aesthetic or a white palette. In the next slide, I'll show a very short 2-minute video from ABC 10 News in San Diego that highlighted an art gallery in Barrio that had to close down in 2019 due to property taxes in the area increasing. So we can play that.
I'm in shock. I don't understand. I'm very confused.
Forced out because of a rent increase. The owners of a popular art gallery in Barrio Logan say they have no choice but to close their doors.
10 News reporter Laura Acevedo has the growing concern for what this means for other businesses nearby.
Tuesday, it was Afro-Cuban music. But on any other night at La Bodega Gallery, it could be artists from around the world.
We have artists from Africa, Russia, Italy, all over the world, you name it.
By the end of the year, there will be no more music, no more art.
I think it's disgusting. It makes me really sad and it makes me really angry.
La Bodega's owner, Sony Lopez Chavez, says she and her husband are being pushed out. Their lease is up, and they say their landlord, Nick Inzunza, raised their rent to a price they can't afford.
When these owners see the success that we bring in, they then all of a sudden get greedy, and then they want more for their spaces. They want to charge more for their rent.
Gallery has hosted over 400 events in their 6 years in Barrio Logan.
The key is they'll go out and they will shop, they will drink, they will eat, and they will support the entire block, the entire Barrio Logan area.
Now other business owners are worried this loss will hurt their business or their leases when it's time to renew.
We all start to wonder because today it's this gallery, last year we had another gallery, and it seems to just kind of be a rippling effect.
That was our Laura Acevedo reporting. The last art gallery is on December the 14th, and the space must be cleared out by the 31st. The owners hope they can find another location in the neighborhood, but for now they have nothing lined up. We did reach out to the landlord, but
he said that the landlord basically didn't want to state anything about it, but it just goes to show the effects of gentrification on many communities of color and how these type of things are happening across the board with many races and different artistic forms of expression, and things that bring the community together and bring them a lot of joy are the things that are the least prioritized. So this can go into our discussion question. The videos don't want to cooperate. How have you seen issues like gentrification affects part of your community that you care about? The example I was going to give was a skate land in an area of San Diego was recently shut down, and there was a big movement to help save it because they were trying to tear it down to build a Target on top of it or something. But it was the last skate rink in San Diego and the last place for people in San Diego to skate together like this. And it was also shut down. If you'll have any examples, you can share that as well. It is still there. Maybe my friends lied to me. Is it the one it's in Loma Linda, right? Linda Vista. Oh, it is still open. I didn't know that. Skate World is temporarily closed because of COVID in Linda Vista. Oh, I didn't know they were still opening it. Interesting. Julian shared Compton is getting really gentrified recently, and I'm waiting to see how this affects the community. It seems to change every time I go visit. Yeah, I've also seen that issue in Bakersfield and those kind of areas. I think there's a show on Netflix called Gentrified. Let me look it up and make sure. But I think that one's also based in the LA area. San Diego's best skating rink, Roller Skate Land in Chula Vista, closed in 2007. Made room for a Social Security office. Yeah, Chula Vista is also in kind of the same area as Barrio Logan as well, like south of the 8 and closer to the border. I didn't get to go there either. That means one of the only roller skating skate world is closer to Northern County, isn't it? If it's in Linda Vista, it's even less accessible. All right, we can move on, but y'all can keep answering in the chat. Now we'll go more into detail on how roller skating got so popular over the last year or so, or in quarantine, at least on mainstream media. This is around the virality of white roller skaters and how roller skating online has gotten whitewashed during the pandemic. There's a video of an actress named Anna Koto who was picked up by the TikTok algorithm. And when I checked it today, it had 17 million views and it still had 2.3 million likes. It was wild. And I was seeing it everywhere when it got popular. I think I included a video on the next slide if we want to go to that. Short little clip, 15 seconds. So it was a really short clip. Jennifer Lopez is singing in the background. As you can see, she's really good. Like, it was really smooth and it was satisfying to watch. And many people recreated similar videos to the song. But it was also bringing up the conversation that there were many Black skaters on the platform who weren't getting the same attention and they weren't getting picked up by whatever algorithms kept being perpetuated. And in many of her interviews, Anna Koto did mention Black history of roller skating being an inspiration for her, and she did use her platform to highlight many Black skaters. But it shows how it took this popular skin creator skating to resurge this movement around roller skating and make it popular to wider generation when Black folks had been trying so hard on the same platform to do the same thing. And when it comes to things like this, the word gatekeeping becomes a big thing, with folks saying an activity shouldn't be kept to race. And this is something that you can kind of be colorblind towards. But this is harmful because it erases the rich history and the culture around roller skating for a lot of people who hold it close to their hearts. And saying that race isn't important when it comes to skating would be invalidating their experiences and their struggles. And although I can't speak for Black skaters or their community, a lot of folks that I saw on TikTok were saying that they just want to emphasize that the activity is for everyone, but they should be learning the history to respect the art. And it's not re-emerging because it's something that they've been doing for a long time. Skating never died out. It was that the eye of the media and different social trends didn't care about highlighting the people that were doing it because it was Black and brown communities. This also led to a lot of popular brands selling out. There's a brand called Planet Roller Skate. They're a brand that has a history of racism and of silencing female Black skaters. They got really popular and their website was sold out for a long time. So this kind of brings up increased accountability for brands to become more inclusive and to remember who they should be providing for, and also for skaters to be providing a support for Black-owned businesses. So I think we have another discussion question on the next slide. If you've seen these kind of skating TikToks, or if you've seen it like in social media, especially when it was more busy, did you see any kind of diversity in your algorithm? This is more just something I was curious about because I really did have to search to find skaters of color and to have these kind of people on my timeline. It shouldn't have been, it wasn't the automatic, you know? I also know that not everyone has TikTok, so this might not be answered by everyone. Watch United Skates on HBO. Yeah, I've heard of a documentary about skating. You might be able to say more about it, about Black skating, closure of roller rinks, documentary of Black roller skating in SoCal. That's a good recommendation. I definitely should watch it.
I can answer the question while we wait. Just like you, Joss, my feed was flooded with white skaters at first. It was just white people. I actually also had to actively seek out Black skaters. I had to see people, oh, here's somebody you should follow. And I was like, okay, I'll follow them just so that I can have that diversity within my feed, because otherwise it would have just been white folks getting the views and the likes.
Yeah, TikTok and those algorithms are really bad doing that, not just with skaters, but with Black creators in general. All right, we can move on, but of course, y'all can keep answering in the chat as well if you have any questions for us.
Okay, now let's explore some famous Black roller skaters. First, introducing Ledger Smith, known as Rollerman. Lolly mentioned him earlier, and we're going to give some more details. On August 27, 1963, Ledger Smith set out from Chicago and made his way to join Martin Luther King's March on Washington. He didn't take a bus or a train, and he didn't drive. He made his way on his roller skates. From Chicago to Washington, D.C., he skated approximately 685 miles in 10 days to reach the Lincoln Memorial. And at this time, he was only 27 years old, and he lost about 10 pounds on his way there. He wore a place card across his chest and in the back. As you can see from the picture, the sign reads, "I'm skating to Washington for civil rights." And on the back, the sign reads, "Freedom." Along the way, he received lots of encouragement from people. Along the highway, they would shout out to him, "Good luck," or "I'll see you in Washington." However, his journey did not go without opposition. Unfortunately, there was a time where he was almost run over by a driver in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And Smith explained in an interview that after this incident, he was actually protected by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and they drove their cars around him to barricade anybody from interrupting him. Then he wanted to use this as a symbolic journey to show the struggle of Black folks and to dramatize the march. He did it in the slowest ways possible, and that's why it took him ultimately 10 days. Taking it a step further, in 1958, Darlene Anderson was the first Black woman to become a professional roller derby skater. Anderson took up skating just as a hobby, not really having an idea that she would become a star in the sport. At the time, roller derby was one of the most popular sports in the nation, and Anderson quickly became a star. She won Rookie of the Year at the age of 19 while skating for the Brooklyn Red Devils. She was loved by all her coaches and teammates, and her career took her all over the nation and worldwide as well. Here are some current viral Black roller skaters from social media platforms such as Instagram and TikTok. First, we have a roller skater out of Los Angeles. He skates to a lot of hip hop and R&B music. Then we have TikTok trender Kelsey Guy. She talks about how she gets a euphoric feeling out of roller skating, and she feels unstoppable, and she feels like it brings out the best in her, and it reminds her of a better time than when she's having a stressful day. And then the last one on this slide is Joshi Soul. He's actually a musician and a roller skater, and he focuses on his personal style by fusing different aesthetics to form a different vibe. Then here we have Omi. She is a skater based out of Berlin, Germany, and she shares various skating content from street skating to ramp skating to jam skating. In the middle, we have Kid Quad. He is a roller skater from TikTok based out of Denver, Colorado. And last we have Camry Jones, is a roller skater on Instagram and TikTok based out of LA, California.
Not only do we want to support Black skaters, but we also want to support Black-owned businesses that work within the skating community. There's Skate Fanatics. It is in LA, and it is owned by Printle Russell. You can check them out in this website. There's also Moonlight Roller, which have some of the prettiest shoes ever. As you can see, the picture in the background is from them. It is owned by Adrienne Cooper, and they even have a mobile skate counter available to book. Considering that we are still within the pandemic, there are no roller skating rinks. This is a really cool thing to have and to be able to rent out. And finally, there is Paradise, which is an athleisure company by Marawa Abraham, and they have really cool clothes. I think recently they also partnered with roller skate companies to have their own brand of roller skates. However, we are unable to cover so much of the rich community of roller skating. Here's a 3-minute video by The Great Big Story that really highlights the culture and community within the roller skating world to wrap up today's presentation.
How would I describe?
Alrighty, that pretty much wraps up our presentation for today. But before y'all leave, please help us improve these presentations by completing a quick survey. So you can just pull out your phone, scan this QR code, it'll take you to the survey, or you can also put in the tiny URL at the bottom of your screen and it'll take you there. I believe Joss also sent it in the chat for quick access.
Okay, y'all can also let us know if you have any questions. We can answer those as well. Thank y'all for attending. We'll be around for the next 10 minutes or so. The presentation should be uploaded on our YouTube channel, maybe in a week or so.
In the next slide, we also have all of the resources that we used for this presentation. If any of y'all are interested in checking out, there's definitely a lot of information that we couldn't fit into this presentation today. So definitely look into that more. Yeah, thank you all for attending today and participating. We really appreciate it. And in the next slide, we also have our Linktree. So y'all can stay connected with us. You can follow us on Instagram at UCSC Cross Cultural Center, or if you need to check out our YouTube, it's Cross Cultural Center as well.